I have a confession. I did not like the PlayStation VR2. It felt bulky, uncomfortable, and honestly, there just weren't many games available. And the games that did exist, I'd already played them elsewhere. So I did what any reasonable adult does. I put it on the shelf and let it collect dust. But over time, I kept seeing more and more people absolutely raving about the PlayStation VR2 and telling me, sometimes very aggressively, that I was wrong. And I've learned over time, don't mess with the PlayStation fanboys. So I started asking myself, what am I missing here? What's the actual fuss? And now that the PlayStation VR2 PC Adaptor exists, I figured, alright, maybe it's time to revisit this thing. And spoiler alert, I have a lot to say about the PC adapter. So I went on a bit of a mission to figure out why people actually like the PlayStation VR2. On paper, the PlayStation VR2 actually has some impressive specs. The big one is the OLED display, which means rich colors, deep blacks, and excellent contrast. It also supports eye tracking for foveated rendering, where the headset tracks what you're looking at and renders that area in fine detail, helping performance and clarity. And then there's the headset haptics and controller haptics, which Sony really leaned into for that immersion. But none of that mattered to me at launch because my biggest issue was much simpler. Comfort. Comfort was my biggest gripe with the PSVR2. I found the facial interface really claustrophobic, it got hot, it got sweaty, and the headset felt bulky, and I'd often end sessions with a headache. I actually mentioned this in a previous YouTube video, and so many of you told me that I had to try the globular cluster accessory. So I reached out to them, and they very kindly sent over the comfort mod, the magnetic facial interface, and the controller grips, which is super lovely of them. And what is also super lovely of them, they are sponsoring today's video. But genuinely, these accessories have been a game changer. And you guys were right. The comfort mod replaces the existing interface and includes a padded top strap, which helps massively with weight distribution. It also includes a rear pad, which is larger than the original and way more comfortable. It's also silicone, so it's anti-slip, but what I really like about the globular cluster is how customizable everything is. You get 3 pad options. There's a fabric material for sweat absorption, a gel-like material for heat dispersion, or a PU leather if you want that more luxury feel. And the fabric and gel pads are washable, which is honestly a game changer, especially if you wear makeup. And all of these are attached with Velcro, so they can be easily swapped out. And installation was super easy. Same with the magnetic facial interface. Had some really clear instructions and tools to remove and install them. It was actually really fun pulling it all apart. I've always found the default PSVR2 interface really claustrophobic, and as someone who wears makeup, the silicone cover gets a bit gross, but this magnetic facial interface lets you run a more open face setup as an option, which has always been my preferred way to use VR, kind of like on the Quest Pro. But if I want maximum immersion, I can just snap the interface back on magnetically. So you got 2 options there on how you use it. Running an open interface though does increase glare slightly, especially in dark scenes, so that's something to be aware of. But for me, that's a trade-off I'm happy to make. And everything Globular Cluster makes feels really high quality, especially when installing. Like everything just feels like an upgrade to what's already installed. Then we have the controller grips. The controller grips add a bit of cushioning to the side of the controller, which adds extra comfort. But the real win is it lets you relax your hands and essentially go hands-free. I could put the headset on while still holding the controllers and then actually start playing instead of fumbling around for the controllers. My previous setup, I could never pick them up the right way. I don't know if anyone else has found that, but with this, way easier. They also include adjustable straps, but I personally found with the cushions, I didn't need them. But that's the great thing, it's all customizable. And the results of all these upgrades, for the first time ever, I actually enjoyed using my PSVR2. I played for hours while testing games for this video and I didn't run into any comfort issues, and I get them quite easily. So genuinely, thank you to everyone who told me to check this out, and thank you to Globular Cluster for sponsoring this video. But now comfort was sorted, what about actually playing games? This is where things started to click for me. The OLED panels immediately stand out. After using a Quest 3 for the last few years, you really do see the difference. colors are rich, contrast is excellent, and dark scenes look fantastic. Games like No Man's Sky genuinely gave me that playing Minecraft for the first time feeling, the sense of wonder and scale and just getting lost. I think I'm going to have to sink some extra hours into this game because I forgot how good it is. I also jumped into Resident Evil Village, which I'd only ever played the flat screen version previously, and experiencing this game from a VR perspective really hits different. And the graphics, you can really tell they went to the extra effort to make this game look and run super well on the PSVR2. Even too well. Like, I love horror games, but I don't know if I want to experience the jump scares in this game in VR. Although I do want to see that weird baby thing. And where the PlayStation VR2 shines is optimization. There's no load times, no lag spikes, everything just runs exactly how it should. And even the room setup on the PSVR2, like room scanning and setting up your play space is just so much quicker. Like, it's more fluid and it just runs super quick. And when you compare that to the Quest, well, I think Meta could learn a thing or two. I also noticed very little motion sickness as well. Even in games with movement, frame rate felt comfortable and I didn't feel any nausea, which I'm finding a problem more and more on the Quest. Sadly, it's usually due to poorly optimized games. Whereas on the PlayStation, I know they're very strict about what developers upload, so that can be a real win here. There is some blur when moving your head quickly, likely a mix of reprojection and persistence blur, and possibly noticeable with the foveated rendering, but it never crossed into this is making me sick territory. And you never notice the foveated rendering doing its thing either. It kind of feels like magic. Another feature of the PSVR2 I love is the haptics. And this isn't just like a vibration that you get with other controllers, it's actual haptics. Controller haptics feel stronger and more nuanced than the Quest. My favorite, the headset haptics, which add subtle immersion with impacts or environmental effects. I just wish more games use it because I get a thrill every time it happens. Even navigating menus triggers light haptic feedback as well, which sounds really small, but it feels premium. And this is just one of those things you don't miss until it's gone. With all that said, the experience isn't flawless. Game discovery is still frustrating. Even with the games I own, I had to toggle several menus just to find the PSVR2 games. Like, trying to find games you know you own isn't always intuitive. Sometimes you go to launch something and instead of playing it just wants an update, even though I've had it turned on. But I think that's just like a PlayStation thing and a consistent issue across all gaming platforms. I did have some weird stability issues though. Like, Horizon Call of the Mountain wouldn't open at all. I had to completely reinstall it. And Gran Turismo 7 crashed on me twice. Now, I'm not sure if that's a software or a console specific issue or a me thing, but it's worth mentioning. And there are still some disappointing experiences. Like, Gran Turismo is a great example of expectations versus reality. All the menus are completely flat screen. Like, I thought I launched the game wrong at first. And VR only kicks in once you're actually driving. At first, I'm like, this is kind of lame. But the second you're in the car, I was like, okay, this is actually kind of cool. It's just worth knowing that not every VR supported title is fully VR. But still, I appreciate that it's VR at all. And I think the games available on the PSVR2 are very, very premium. But I still feel like the library is pretty limited. Like with the Quest or the Steam VR library, there's a lot more options and versatility. But in saying that, if you're not playing VR games, library of flat screen games available on the PlayStation. And again, the quality of the VR games that are available make the PSVR2 worth it alone. Like, if you only ever played Resident Evil games, worth it. If you only ever played Gran Turismo or No Man's Sky, worth it. They're just such premium experiences that I think if you own a PlayStation 5 and there are games that pique your interest, you're going to have a really great time with those games. And while the Quest 3 has a massive library, it's still really held back by visuals. There have been so many times I've shown people the Quest 3 and they've kind of just been disappointed. Like, they thought VR would look better, and sadly, that's most people's first introduction to VR. But with the PSVR 2, I think it has that wow factor that VR deserves and delivers on. And it allows for a high fidelity, seamless experience at a relatively low price. But not everyone wants to be tied down to console gaming. And that is where this comes in. And it allows you to connect your PlayStation VR to a VR supported gaming PC and essentially run it through Steam VR like any other VR headset. And setup was surprisingly smooth. It just has a little USB adapter and you plug a display port into it and into your GPU. Also has a little power supply as well and a little port at the front for your PlayStation VR2. And you just download the software from the Steam store. And I've seen lots of people complain about Bluetooth issues with this thing, and sadly my controllers didn't connect by default, so I did need a Bluetooth dongle, so you do need to factor in that cost potentially. But everything else was pretty seamless. And surprisingly, pass-through works. I wasn't expecting that for some reason. And room setup is still very smooth. It's pretty much exactly the same as the PlayStation, and honestly, it's smoother than the Steam VR setup. And after using the PC adapter, I was like, oh, this genuinely feels like a game changer. Because this is where the OLED panels really shine. Like the richness in colors and deep blacks made me remember what it's like to have high quality VR again. I've mostly been using the Quest 3 for PCVR gaming out of convenience and mostly over Wi-Fi, which loses quality through compression. And I have used the Bigscreen Beyond 1 in the past, but not for a while. And I think I just forgot what a game changer OLED is, even with the cable, which is annoying, and I am somewhat used to tethered VR from using the Valve Index. But with this display quality, it feels like a fair trade, and it's got me thinking, this setup is a genuine competitor in the PCVR hardware race. Like, sure, you've got the Bigscreen Beyond, which is stunning, and I'm currently working on a review on the Beyond 2E right now, so keep an eye out for that. But not everyone can afford a big screen or wants to deal with the Lighthouse base stations. And yes, you've got the Quest headsets, and while they're cheap and convenient, they really don't do justice to what PCVR can deliver visually. And then you've got the Steam frame, which everyone is betting on. But it's not OLED, it's plain old LCD panels. And cost-wise, well, we don't really know, but I don't think it'll be cheap. So considering cost of the Steam frame and how the LCD panels may perform, the PSVR2 with a PC adapter may deliver a better experience and even a cheaper one. So I'm pretty blown away. And I think I finally get it now. And the big takeaway here is that OLED wins. It really delivers a visual experience that's hard to beat. So now when people ask me about a good PCVR setup, I'm definitely going to be recommending the PlayStation VR2. So was I wrong about the PlayStation VR2? Yeah, kind of. With the right comfort setup and especially with PC support, the PSVR2 finally makes sense to me. And after using the Quest for so long, I think I can really appreciate it more. It's not perfect, there's still friction, there are still software quirks, but the visuals and haptics and immersion, especially with the OLED, make this a genuinely compelling headset in 2026. And for the first time, I'm actually glad I took it off the shelf. If you like VR hardware and game recommendations, don't forget to subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!